Welcome to Business Talks. Business Talks is brought to you in part by STCU and O'Brien Logistics.
Well, welcome to Business Talks. I'm your host, Kent Adams. Hope you're having a good day. And today we're going to talk about the business of real estate. That doesn't mean necessarily owning a business of real estate or buying buildings and so forth, or your home. It includes all of that and more, because all of us at one point or another either rent, lease, or buy and sell properties. And so a lot of good things are happening. The market is going a little crazy. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to want to welcome our two guests today. Tom Hormel, who is the NAR, National Association of Realtors. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
Pretty darn close, okay. Director. And you're the first vice president, there must be a second and third, of the State Washington Association of Realtors, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and things are going to get better when you take over, right?
Yeah, sure.
Are you ready for that responsibility?
It started the day I got elected.
Oh, yeah. Well, welcome to the reality, huh?
Yes, sir.
And then Darin Watkins, who's the Governmental Affairs Director at the Spokane Association of Realtors. Gentlemen, welcome to Business Talks. And Tom, last week, you and a gaggle of realtors went to Washington, D.C. Have you gotten that out of your system yet?
I'm still not quite awake. I'm still on East Coast time.
Why would you and the Realtors group go to Washington, D.C.? What's in it for not only Realtors, but it's beyond Realtors. It's beyond folks who own homes and buy and sell and all, isn't it?
Yeah, there was roughly 11,000 of my closest friends there with us.
Okay.
And we were there, mainly we were doing the business of the association, but also we go to the Hill and we advocate for property rights. And,
Okay.
This year, one of the big topics is the extension of the National Flood Insurance Program. If
Okay.
that doesn't pass, about 40,000 or 4,000 deals a day don't close.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nationwide.
Okay.
Not just in Washington, but
Right.
nationwide. So we were advocating for
That
that.
can be
to extended.
devastating, can't it? To
Oh,
those 4,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, if you were in the middle of buying a house and you couldn't get the flood insurance at the end, it would be devastating.
Yeah. So that needs to be renewed, or what?
Yeah, and what they're looking to do right now, they like to kick the can down the road, as we
Yeah.
say, and they're looking to extend it till September when they do the full budget talks. But
Yeah.
we want to see at least a 5-year reauthorization.
Yeah. Quit playing politics.
Yeah, quit playing
basically.
politics
Yeah.
with people's lives.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
mhm.
absolutely. Because there are families out there wanting to move or wanting to sell and everything
Right.
else, and now it's up in the air.
Right. We also want them to look into some changes, some reforms, also allowing more private industry to step in
Okay.
to do flood insurance, so it's not all on the backs of the federal government
Okay.
in the flood insurance program.
And what's the reception to that idea?
Well, they're okay with that idea. The problem that we have is if you go outside of the national flood insurance
Okay.
program and go private and then come back, you lose your place in line and you lose your premiums that you had, and you get re-amortized to the new premiums,
Okay,
which could
okay.
be cost prohibitive.
Yes.
So what we would like them to do is allow somebody to go to a private side of it, and if that doesn't work out, they could come back and get the same rates that
Right.
they had.
That would make some sense. So what you're doing really, to me, sounds like you're really there to protect the homeowner.
Yes, sir.
I mean, more than the selling and buying, but we often look at, well, the realtor's making a great commission and everything else, but it's about getting people in and to new homes and so forth. And that's what it comes down to, doesn't it, Darin?
It really was, and I think what was impressive is that it's a national convention, and
Yes,
with those
okay.
11,000 that were there, we all picked the same day to go onto the Hill, and so nearly every single member of Congress in both the House and the Senate had somebody in their office that day to talk about these exact same issues.
Okay.
Because most of the time you look at property rights and things like that, we think about it as a local issue. But when
Right.
it comes to lending or when it comes to regulations, those really have to be done at the federal level, and
Yes.
that's why we were there.
Good. What other issues were on the agenda?
Well, under the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, they did this thing called qualified opportunity zones, where they designated some low income areas in different cities. Now every governor got together with their staff and they picked these, and there are quite a few in Spokane County also. And those qualified opportunity zones allow people to do similar to a 1031 exchange. They can take the money that they made off of another building, reinvest it into those low income areas, help stimulate the economy in those areas, and get some tax free gains for that. So that was a great new program that they've got. We also were talking about infrastructure and the fact that we always support good infrastructure.
Yes.
When you have bad infrastructure.
If you can't get from here to there, what's the point?
Right.
Right.
If you can't get to your job, you don't have a job. If you can't get to your house, that doesn't work also. So, there was, we also keep talking, and this is a hot topic in everybody's mind, I think, is the data privacy and security.
Okay.
We keep having these large companies with data breaches.
Yes.
And we were there making sure, here we are, realtors, we're advocating for them to make sure that the laws are not onerous on small business as a whole. Because sometimes the federal government has a way of throwing a rule out there that's so onerous that businesses just shut down.
And to the multi-billion-dollar companies, that's not necessarily a drag on them, but to the small mom and pop and others, it can really affect their bottom line, or not to have a bottom line, right?
Right. Another hot topic is health insurance.
Okay.
And, the federal government had a ruling that allowed for association health plans.
Yes.
Our state happens to be one of the 12 that sued the federal government based on that and has stopped that. But it's what I read, or what I have read on that, is they believe that anybody that pulls out of the Affordable Care Act plans to go to these associated plans, it's going to hurt the Affordable Care Act, which we don't want to do that, but I also shouldn't be paying higher premiums than I have to.
Because you have to, yes. Yeah,
So.
no kidding. Well, it sounds like, do you think it was a successful trip?
I definitely think it was.
Okay, good.
Any time a member of Congress sees you travel that far,
yes,
they
have to listen and watch.
And that it truly does matter when your constituents meet with a federal person like that. They stop, they listen, they know what the rules are, and I do believe that over the last bunch of years we've made a big difference in all of the bills. Yeah. We'll see on these, but most of these have already the flood insurance passed the House while we were there.
Okay.
It hasn't passed the Senate yet.
Right.
The health insurance plans, they're already there. We're just waiting for some federal rulings, maybe to overturn these state lawsuits that then would allow those health plans. So it's all good for business.
Good. Good. And that's what it comes down to, is for the homeowner and the business people and so forth.
Well, and one of the things I like to make sure people understand is we're never there lobbying for a commission.
Yeah.
We're never there lobbying for ourselves. We're lobbying for property rights, which in the end we get to sell that property.
Right.
But we're lobbying for the person that owns that property and their right to do with that property what they want to do.
Let's turn now inward into Spokane and all that's going on here. What is the current status of the housing market right now? Because we hear things, it's a buyer-seller market, it's the inventory's bad, the whatever, and even my wife will say, well, look at all the homes for sale. And I said, well, welcome to spring and going into summer. That's a traditional time as things start to turn over with school ending and so forth, and for other reasons. But what is the status right now, both of you?
We have a severe shortage of homes on the
market.
We have the lowest inventory I think we've ever had in our recorded history.
That bad?
That bad.
Okay.
And it stems from a lot of things. Part of it stems from, when the meltdown of 2007 happened.
Yes.
We lost a lot of our mom and pop builders.
Okay, yes.
The money wasn't there to have them build, and the housing, the people weren't there to buy the houses, so they went out of business. And now what we have left in Spokane are a few large builders, and we're starting to see some of the smaller builders come back. But we've been building at about 50% of the capacity needed for the housing industry to keep up with the population inflation.
I know I talked to one larger builders and like a year and a half ago or so, and said, why don't you build more? And he said, Kent, my problem is finding the craftspeople and so forth to do that, because I could just take about anybody. However, the cost of redoing and fixing
Right.
the problems. And so to get the skilled people, which brings up the point that I've been really working on the last 6 months or so. We have talked for the last decade or two of how important it is for that four-year college education. And I think to the detriment of the skills trade, where you can basically come out of a couple of years of training and so forth without a large debt and a decent wage and salary and benefits and all that. And I'm seeing a trend now come back to that. And I think part of that is the housing issue that becomes so large and so much discussed in our community here that, well, look at the rents are going up, and it's supply and demand, folks. That's what it comes down to. You know, like it or not, that's the reality of what we live in. One of the things too that has always hit me, and that is the more folks we can find and move them into a house they own rather than just rent or lease, the better off the neighborhoods are going to be in terms of increasing the ownership and the feeling connected to that neighborhood versus, well, I don't care, if the window's broken, they'll fix it sometime, and all the other things that go with that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's studies after studies that will
Yeah.
show that really at the core of being an American
Yeah.
is owning a home. It's the number one way that Americans can build wealth for retirement.
Right.
In this,
Right.
and it's the one, and it does everything. It's not just building a sense of value. I'm going to fix this house up because I'll have more value when I sell it. No, it's about the investment you make in the neighborhood.
Because I live there too.
Live there.
Right.
You become vested in the community. You get to know your neighbors better.
Yes.
Those are all tangible things that really play out in making neighborhoods strong.
Right, right. While I'm thinking of it, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a side thing, but we have a pretty bad homeless issue in town. And is that driven at all by the lack of housing, or is that really driven by the mental illness and the drugs and the other things that are going, and if you read the paper the other day, the shipping of people from Portland to here and so forth?
I think that all takes a role, but I have to say that for one of the first times when they identified their annual lists they will go through the counts, one of the first top 5 things that came up was the lack of affordable housing, or for affordable rentals.
Right.
Well, you think about this, we have a population right now where we have about 1% vacancy rate in our rentals.
Yes.
And of those people who are in those rentals, about 45% of them qualify to buy a house. There's just no house for them to go to.
Ah, okay.
And so if that's putting pressure
Welcome
on the
to the
rental market,
domino theory, right?
and so my dad was a house builder,
Yeah.
and he used to say that whenever he built a house, 3 families got a new place to live,
Yeah.
right? Because the person who bought the new house was selling their starter house,
Right.
and the person who was buying that starter house was leaving a rental.
Yes.
And so you have it's an opportunity that goes up and down. We call them the ladder, if you will, for ladders, because in housing we tend to move up and we tend to move down.
Right.
You may have a family and you need a 4 or 5 bedroom home,
Right.
but now that your family's grown, maybe you don't need that big
What you're
house
saying
anymore.
is, as I get older, or I get ancient, okay? I mean, and we've had that debate. We've had a house that 4 kids have grown up in, and so forth, 2-story, and we have this debate about once a month, my wife and I, about when do we move to the 1-story or move into a condo or something like that. We feel like we're up to it now, but there will be a day that probably climbing and coming down the stairs is not appropriate.
Or when you can't find anything because your house is too big.
Well, yeah, right. Well, that's not going to happen. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about the prices of homes and what's going on and here in the Spokane area. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Tom and Darin right after this.
The following is sponsored by our friends and community supporters at McNeese Wheeler Attorneys. McNeese Wheeler is a boutique law firm in Spokane, handling matters in both Washington and Idaho. Areas of law include business law, wills, trusts and estates, family law, personal injury and wrongful death, and real estate matters. For your full-service legal needs, contact McNeese Wheeler Attorneys.
I'm Nikki Butler, and I'm a regional manager for STCU. My lunch buddy is Nicole. I'm Brandy Schloss. I'm a regional manager at STCU. My lunch buddy is Angelina. She's grown up with me. I've grown up with her. To see her graduate will be a lot of fun.
Brandy and I have been lunch buddies since the girls were in 2nd grade.
It's great that STCU provides me with the opportunity to be part of Reach for the Future. We are committed to the children. We're committed to our community.
I'm Nikki.
I'm Brandy.
And STCU is here for good.
O'Brien Logistics would like to invite you to try our local and regional transportation services. With Sprinter vans, lift gates, hot shot flatbeds, and expedited services, our people are ready to step in and help with your transportation needs. Our services are 24/7, 365, and we are trained and prepared to handle air cargo and Canadian shipments. Give us a call at 208-305-2311 or visit our website at o'brienlogistics.net. That's OBRIEN logistics.net.
Well, welcome back to Business Talks. We're talking the business of real estate, which we all should pay attention to. Tom Hormel and Darin Watkins, welcome back. Welcome. And we were talking during the break a little bit, and we mentioned before we went to the break about the cost of housing when there's that supply and demand issue that we face now. Mm-hmm. What's happening with the housing market in terms of prices?
Well, the last 3 years we've seen double-digit increases.
Wow.
So,
okay.
And that, I mean, if somebody's coming from California, that might, 10 or 12% might not seem like a lot. But in Spokane, where historically we're 6 or 7%, when you get 12 or 13 or 14%, it's
and a couple of years in a row.
A couple years in a
row,
you start to price out that lower end of the market. Like we were talking during the break, I teach first-time homebuyer classes for SNAP, and in the last couple months I've taught 100 students, and then I went in and I did the numbers, and I said, well, first-time homebuyer probably around 150,000.
Okay.
Needs to be FHA.
Yeah.
There was 2 homes on the market.
So
I had 100
wow.
people in class and 2 classes.
And 3 years, 4 years ago, you would have had maybe 50 or 100 to pick from or something? Yeah.
So it's just, part of it is that
Wow.
there still is some distressed properties coming on the market. Those don't qualify for typical FHA financing.
Right.
So the buyer goes out and they're looking, and then they get disappointed because everything out there either needs too much work, or when they go to write an offer, there's 11 offers on the property.
Oh, gee. Right. Okay, the inventory issue that I mentioned before, what is it right now, at about 1,000?
Total homes,
Okay, total homes. And what has it been a couple years ago?
Yeah, it was 2 and 3 times that. Just
really?
Even when we were talking about this being a crisis 3 years ago. It's just, and that is...
Wait. We're down to like a third of what it was 3 or 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. Well, no wonder the prices are going up. No wonder people are doing multiple offers and getting multiple offers as a seller and so forth. That's tough out there, isn't it? Mm-hmm.
Well, and then you add onto that the new wing coming in at Fairchild. And,
yes.
And we've got Amazon coming in, and we've got a lot of job growth, which is an amazing thing
Absolutely.
to have. But our housing supply hasn't been able to keep up with that job growth.
So let me guess. I'm going to take a wild guess and see if I've listened. It's a seller's market.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And how long do you think this is going to last?
My crystal ball, and I've been doing this for 21 years now, I see 4 or 5 or 6 more years of this.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just
because of catching up with the construction and everything else that goes on, right?
Yeah. Well, and everybody says, well, then we need to get more people to list their homes. Well, where are they moving?
Yeah.
We need more new inventory on the market.
Okay.
And just so that you know, we also passed a bill in January in the state legislature when we were at the State House doing the same thing I was doing in Washington, D.C., and that's lobbying, that corrected some problems that we had with condo liability,
yes.
Which made it impossible for a developer to build a condo unit with 30 or 40 units. Now, in Seattle, they were still building them because when you have 400 units, you can defray a cost of a $40,000 or $50,000 insurance.
Right, over that
pretty
many.
easy.
Right.
But you can't do that when you're building a
I think there were a
15
couple articles with Jim Frank and others talking about what that's meant, is that he's had to go to renting and leasing and not building to buy.
Well, and the law was silly because it allowed you to convert that
ridiculous.
in 10 years.
Hey, our Spokane City Council president has talked about that we have this housing crisis. What do you think he's trying to say?
Well, I'm glad to see that they're finally acknowledging the housing crisis, but I haven't seen
Because it's staring him right in the face, maybe?
right.
Okay.
But I haven't seen the rules and the regulations follow suit to ease up on that.
Okay.
You know, it still costs a builder thousands and thousands of dollars in permits. And no matter what anybody thinks, a businessman doesn't eat those costs.
Right.
Every time you add $1 to the price of a house to build it,
Right.
you added $1.50 to the price of the home to sell
Right,
it because
right.
of selling costs and everything else.
Yeah, we always think we're going to get the big builder, right, or the contractor, but
Right.
it's going to be passed on, or they're not going to stay in business,
Right.
or they're going to go on and do something else where they can make a better profit. I mean,
Right.
that's just how the system works.
When it costs you $8,000 to $10,000 to hook up to the water, and
Right.
another $8,000 to $10,000 to hook up to sewer, and a couple $1,000s in permits, all of a sudden you don't even have a foundation out of the ground,
Yeah.
and the builder's into it $30,000 or $40,000.
Darin, you've been doing the governmental affairs things here for Spokane Association of Realtors for what, 6 months or so now?
Yes, sir.
And what are some of the challenges you face as a staff person to look at those issues?
Well, to me, the biggest challenge is just getting information out. I mean, it's
Okay.
one thing to say it's a crisis, but it's able to.
What are you gonna
spell
do
that
about
out,
it?
right? You have when you only have you've got all these people wanting to buy homes. Here's an example. So you have, think of yourself. If you're a young person, you're living in an apartment. Some of these new apartments are going up for $1,800 a month.
Really?
Suddenly, a house comes up for sale in an area you want to be in. It's the price you think you can be at. Well, these folks have been saving now. They're saving for 2 and 3 and 4 years.
Right.
So now, when that house comes on the market, they say, "Here's our offer," and then, "Oh, there's his offer, there's her offer."
Yeah, yeah.
Now, well, I've got some savings to put down. So you're seeing homes that were traditionally we think about the 175 range. Suddenly now that's 180, that's 190, that's 210
Yeah.
because of escalator clauses. The challenge becomes it only takes 2 homes in that neighborhood, and that's the new bench. So now all those homes are 210.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge that we have right now. Now there's some exciting things happening. I think
Okay.
you're seeing. So there's a couple of townhome developments that are coming
Okay.
on board,
Yes.
where it's not traditional single-family housing like we think of.
Right.
That'll be exciting to see how that is accepted in the marketplace.
Okay.
I have to think if I'm living in an apartment and that comes available, it would seem very
Might
attractive.
not be a bad idea.
Some
Yeah.
cottage homes that are being considered. So those are some things that we'll have to see. That's kind of a first time for Spokane.
Yeah.
Spokane's been a long traditional
Yes,
old
yes,
homes,
yes.
1940s era.
Right.
So that'll be fun to
About
see.
1912.
Well,
Yeah.
And
South Hill.
what we need to see
Yeah.
is a multi-pronged approach.
Yes.
This is not going to be handled by the single-family home builder or
Right.
the townhome builder or the condo builder
Yes.
or the
We
accessory
need
dwelling
choices
units.
as
We have
buyers.
to do all of it.
Yes.
And we've got to have housing policy in the city to do all of it.
And we don't?
There hasn't always been. Let's
Okay,
just say that.
okay.
I think we're working towards that. I think that they see this crisis, but if you tried to get an accessory dwelling unit put on your property in the past, I think you ran into
Okay.
a lot of red tape and a lot of people that are what we call the NIMBYs.
Yes,
The not in my
yes.
backyard. And if they
Yes,
scream
yeah.
loud enough,
Right.
their council person
So
or
they
their
move it
legislator
somewhere
listens
else.
They go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then yet that same person will then turn around and whine about the fact they can't afford to buy a home in that
Yeah.
area.
or their children.
Or their children
or their
can't afford
Right.
relatives
Right.
that want to come back to
Yeah,
Spokane.
and we've got some of the cities, Spokane City Council, that are bitching and complaining about one thing or another, and about the homeless and the starter homes and everything else. But are they really addressing the issues with the real estate market and the realtors group to help take away the inhibitors that make it tough for people?
Right.
And are they working with the association?
We're seeing more of that. We're
Okay.
seeing more, especially
Okay.
as we provide more data and information
Okay.
that they can see
Okay.
that. I do think that it's difficult from a city because it's one of those things. How do you, as a city, force development?
Yeah.
You can't. All you can do is offer incentives or offer, ease things up to make better development in a different area, such as economic opportunity zones.
Right.
So that's the challenge: is how do you balance that? The needs of a city versus we're just trying to make sure that people recognize that I think housing is a really important
Yes.
thing for people, and we need to try to help make that happen too.
And the more people that own their homes will take care of their neighborhoods and be happy ratepayers and taxpayers and everything else because they'll be more connected with all
Right.
that we're doing. Any last words, gentlemen, before we wrap it up here on what's going on? Have I left something out?
No, like I said before, I think it's just a multi-pronged approach. Same thing with the homelessness issue.
Yeah.
All of this ties together.
Yeah, yeah.
There is a percentage of the homeless that it's about affordability. There's the other part that needs mental health.
Yes.
The capabilities that we don't have, the drug rehab that we don't have.
Yes.
So we've got to work on all of this stuff in a holistic approach, and we've all got to be able to sit down and talk to one another without arguing, fighting,
Right.
and walking away mad.
Or trying to tax one group or the other because
Right.
they're better advantaged or whatever it may be, or they've worked hard to buy their homes and the improvements and everything else. I get tired of some of this socialism attacks of, well, he or she has it, I deserve it. Well, he or she worked for it. I mean,
Well, and if you
haven't
tax a
we
business,
all?
if you tax a business too much, they're going to move somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you've lost. Not only have you lost what you thought was your increase,
Right.
you've lost the base of the tax.
Exactly.
And now you're in a deeper hole.
Yeah, yeah. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for what SAR, Spokane Association of Realtors, does for this community. What is it, 105, 107 years here in Spokane?
107, I think.
107 years? Wow. I remember when it was first started. Okay. All right, we won't go there. Okay, I had a pet dinosaur too, people
Perfect.
say. So anyway, Tom and Darin, thank you very much. We hope you've learned something. Check out the Spokane Association of Realtors website for some good information as well. In the meantime, have a great week, everybody. See you next time on Business Talks.
Thanks for watching. Business Talks is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksMedia.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Business Talks is brought to you in part by STCU and O'Brien Logistics. Ask Kent a question, recommend a guest, or hear this program again on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com.